Teach us to learn and to grow. Together the love.
I have noticed when the boys and girls are playing during exploration time and the various times that we have play in our classrooms, that they are even asking one another higher level thinking skills. It's not just, what did you want to be today, maybe when they're dressing up at the Creative Dramatic Center.
When I chose to incorporate play into my classroom, I chose to also include large amounts of social interaction, which also meant large amounts of problem-solving opportunities. Because these children many of these children have not been to school, they've not played with large groups of children, a lot of those social skills about how to get along and how to share and how to solve a problem need to be taught each year in my classroom.
Play is natural for children. It's what they do with materials, with each other. It's an interactive thing. It's how they make sense of their world. For instance, they'll explore and play with materials over and over again in order to gain meaning from those materials, to understand the properties of those materials. You can learn about the whole child through observing their play. Really, if you watch them over a series of days or weeks, you'll probably hit on every domain, the social, emotional, cognitive, their physical development. And by observing the things they can do and the mistakes that they make too, you can have a real good handle on where that child is developmentally and what skills as a teacher that you can help them to develop and what experiences you can provide for them that could assist them in furthering their development.
A child learns to make sense of the world through playing. Play provides the chance for a child to master his environment and gain feelings of control. Through play, a child learns about the rules of interacting with others. This is the beginning of his socialization. Play also allows a teacher to learn about a child. By observing a child as he plays, the teacher can learn much about a child that the child would not be able to voice himself. This segment of the Early Childhood program will show how children use play to explore their world and begin to interact with others. Finally, a teacher will show how she watches her children playing to assess them. The first time children encounter the various elements of their world, there can be confusion, even fear. But there is also wonder. Through play, a child explores new things and tries to establish some meaning.
When we went to school, we learned all this not Maslow, what is it?
Bloom's taxonomy.
Bloom's taxonomy. The lower level things are just knowledge. Spit out what you know, tell it to us quick. Play is using what you know. It's synthesis. It's taking apart what you know and putting it together in a new way. Play in itself is the highest level of thinking. Just as writing is the highest level of thinking. If they're sounding out those words, they're having to use all those letters, all those phonics skills, all the things they've read before, and putting them together in something new. Exploration time is a time that we start the day with, and we really view it as a community building time where we get to know each other's strengths and get to experiment with interests. The children have already made a plan in their plan book of where they've decided to spend their time. They make their plan in various ways. Sometimes they draw, sometimes they write, sometimes they use a map of the room, sometimes they graph, just depends. So they use that plan and they go to the area of the room that they're interested in investigating.
I'm going to the games.
You're going to challenge Chris to checkers again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you practiced some new strategies? Try some good old true blue ones, right? Today we have set up the puppet theater. Oftentimes kids will go to the arts and crafts area and develop a play of some type, and then at the end of exploration time, they may choose to put on the puppet show for the kids.
These people have made a production. What's the name of it?
Don't do drugs.
Okay, and I notice you've got it written on the back there also.
You guys do drugs? No. We never wanted. They are there.
Sometimes we have a music center set up where they'll use the music and they'll put music with the play. So there's some cooperating and some working together, a lot of social things going on.
Cooperation that goes on in all these centers is just incredible. Mary and I noticed the other day, and we had never experienced this before, that we had 5 people at one computer, and we thought, oh, this is going to be good. We're going to see how they handle that. And it worked wonderfully. They decided somebody would answer one question, use the mouse, then they would pass it to the next person, they would use the mouse, and just rotate around. And we were very, very pleased that they were responsible enough and knew that everybody wanted a part in that. And they spent their whole 20 minutes doing that and getting along quite well. One of the other centers that we have out too is the Take Apart Center.
Oh, and that has just been wonderful. The kids put on goggles and we bring, or the kids actually bring things from home that are broken, and they take them apart.
Hey, I'm gonna try and cut this. Allie, I'll show you why, see, look at it, it's clogged up. See why it wouldn't work? Austin thought it wasn't clogged up.
We've taken apart blenders and clock radios, and oh, they're so amazed at the different color wires they find, and possibly making some connections between, gee, if this had a red wire and a blue wire, maybe, and it had that in the blender, maybe there's a reason for that. Why are they coded that way? Play is the process that children use to learn best. And teachers need to provide experiences where children are interacting with one another, where they can use critical thinking skills, and also then we need to reflect on those particular experiences. And this develops the whole child. Thus, play becomes a joyful learning experience.
For the last 2 or 3 years, Sue and I have held a curriculum night, which is much more advantageous than a parent night where you just shake their hands as they go by. What we do is we invite the parents in, we talk with them about our philosophies, we walk them through our day, and we explain what their children are going to do, what they'll see when they come into the classroom, and why they're doing what they're doing. So there's no surprises.
Once again, we explain to them that children learn best through active involvement. They need to have hands-on experiences, they need to have opportunities that they can think, they need to have opportunities that they can talk with other children, and then opportunities that they can reflect on these experiences that they've had. And parents are very understanding when they know that they'll come into the classroom and children probably, for the majority of the day, will not be sitting behind their desk doing pencil paper work, that they're actively involved and participating in their learning.
I don't think we've always done a good job in the school systems. I don't want to say educating, but helping parents evolve as we've evolved. We've been forced to evolve. They've told us schools are not doing a good enough job. Find a better way. So we're finding better ways, but change is very hard for us, but especially for parents, because those are their children. Those are the most important parts of them. And they need to have some ownership into that change, and they need to understand what we're doing. It's no longer just because we say it's okay. And it shouldn't be that way. So what we found this year was we had to explain to parents that, yes, all the pieces of the puzzle are there. We still teach phonics, we still teach math, we still teach spelling, not in the way it was when you came to school, but here's the way we do it. And when you explain the way it makes sense, you get supportive parents, you really do.
We need to take into account that every child is at a different developmental level. And I can think of several examples of children who are at varying ranges in our classrooms. One whose intellectual ability is very, very high. We try to structure our questions so he is using the higher level thinking skills, such as analyzing, synthesizing, taking things apart. How will he evaluate things? Where, as opposed to that, if we have a student who is more on the concrete level, we're just asking them maybe basic knowledge questions, but something that we can be supportive, but yet still using our questioning techniques.
That's where the art of teaching comes in. Really. You can't get that out of a book. You have to feel where the child is and you can't leave them at that concrete level. You have to keep stretching them. And you have to stretch them far enough so that they're encouraged to take risks. It's so important that it's a risk-free environment, that they can take a guess and be wrong. And that's where play comes in also. Play is less risk. You can be wrong, and it's just a game.
And
you're not
we
being
make
judged.
it very important in our classrooms that we learn from our mistakes. They see Mary and I learn from our mistakes all the time. And that's all right. That's a natural part of learning. And if there are no mistakes made, then probably there isn't a whole lot of learning going on.
I don't want to give the impression either that only the very intellectually developed child is asked higher level thinking. That is not true at all. We're always saying, how did you know that? How did you figure that out? Explain to me your strategy. Because again, the power is in thinking.
It does. All right.
As children play, they are influenced by their environment, the time they are given, and the materials they have. The children with whom they play is another factor. Through play, children begin to progress through the stages of social development. At the earliest level, called solo play, they are oblivious to other children. At the second level, called parallel play, two children use the same object side by side, but their play is not influenced by any interactions. At the final level, called cooperative play, children begin to use their social interactions as part of the play itself.
When children are playing in the block corner, a casual glance over there would look like children putting up blocks and blocks falling down. As a child works in the block corner throughout the day and throughout the year, the child is problem solving because it'll start building a tower and the tower will fall down, and it might be because it doesn't have a strong enough base or it might be too high. For a while ago, the children were trying to build bridges, and they were trying to put up pillars and then put a flat one across. And they were trying to connect them. And as they were doing that, they were experimenting with balance and with length and with shapes and with height and with problem solving and with communicating. So embedded within any of the children's play is a whole realm of curriculum going on that carries across all the curriculum areas and is integrated. Instead of my setting them down in the circle on the floor and saying, today we're going to see how high we can build these blocks, it just naturally happens by the shapes and the weights and the sizes and what the children begin to create. Play is often a difficult thing to explain to the observer or to a parent in the classroom. In September, I do a lot of just telling them to trust it and to watch it and to see what happens. The parents become to be concerned because the kids aren't bringing home papers and they're not bringing home dittos, and they have a hard time knowing what's going on in the classroom. So what I say to the parents is that I often invite them into the classroom to watch, and while they're there watching, I talk to them about what's going on in the classroom. I send home newsletters and trying to explain to them about what's happening. I talk about how we do teach and how there are times when I pull the children aside in a small group and work on a specific skill or work on a specific area of interest that the children I feel need to learn more about or that they're interested in.
Visitors to Mary Lynn's class often note that the children always seem to be playing. The trained eye sees the learning through the apparent chaos. As the children play, they are learning to resolve conflicts, to solve problems, and to negotiate with one another. Note the youngster with the mop. He has found a positive solution for the water problem surrounding the snow table.
Many of these children have not been to school. They've not played with large groups of children. A lot of those social skills about how to get along and how to share and how to solve a problem need to be taught each year in the classroom. About not snatching things from each other, about sharing a toy, about asking, about not throwing, about putting things away where I get them from, about not playing beside you, this is my doll, but how can we use this doll together to further our play? And not saying, so-and-so can't join us, we've already playing, but how to allow a child to come to that center and join the center and become part of the play in the housekeeping. But I believe beyond the reading, the writing, the math, that is the most important skill that I can teach the children, because anytime we go into our jobs or into our personal lives, what's more important is how we get along with each other and how we treat each other. So a large part of our curriculum in our classroom is about developing respect for each other and developing strategies for getting along with each other. I have another suggestion. Markers. We could poke eyes. Do we have anything in our markers? Do we have anything in our collage boxes over there that we could use?
Yes.
Why don't you check the drawers, Robin, and see what's in the drawers?
Go over manipulatives.
Or in manipulatives. Good.
They got eyes.
Because there's so much diversity and need and levels of need and skill in our included classroom, social interactions become even more challenging.
Mary Lynn Heimbach's classroom includes children with different handicaps. Play helps children with special needs open doors for developing language, invention, scientific thought, and socialization. In Ms. Heimbach's pressure-free classroom, all children learn to control and master their environment. Mary Lynn's children show us how play extends the child's learning to new concepts. Children learn sequences like left to right for writing and symbol representation for reading. In Val Timms' K1 class, the children also use imaginative play to develop social and conceptual skills.
Play is a time when children have the opportunity to interact with each other. A lot of socialization skills are present at that time. The sharing, the cooperation that comes about, being part of a team, or just creating and using some prior knowledge in their own special little way is all a part of the play scene or play situation.
During play in a risk-free environment, children can make choices and take on roles, family roles, and community helper roles. As children move from the preschool years to the early primary grades, play becomes more cooperative.
Starsha.
Are you coming, Starsha? No, she's staying to clean up. All right. See you later. We'll be back. Bye.
Through play, children explore what they want to learn and when they want to learn. While playing, children reveal what they know and what they have learned since they came to the classroom.
I think observing play can give a teacher a real insight into what's happening with the child, what's important to that child, the experiences that child is having outside the classroom. And also it gives the teacher a real good sense of where the child is developmentally, what their understandings are of concepts and of materials. I think it's important in early childhood that we do some structuring of play in order to get the most out of play for young children. And I guess the most important way that we do that is to structure the classroom environment so that we set it up with materials and equipment and opportunities that we think are important and we know will facilitate learning. Over the years we've learned that there's certain materials that really help children to learn, like blocks, like some manipulatives, like easel paint and Play-Doh and fluid materials. All of those things really have a lot of potential for enhancing cognitive and social, emotional, and every kind of growth that the child can develop. The role of the teacher is really important, too, in enhancing play, and I think as teachers, we have many roles. One is to facilitate learning. One is to assist, too, when children are having problems. Often it's good for them to learn by themselves, but if they're really struggling, you have to give them that support, and that helps so that they can later on do it by themselves. So I think through teacher interaction, observation first of all of what the children are doing in their levels of development, and then some interaction, facilitation, some changing of the environment, a teacher can really enhance and direct play. When I first started in the early childhood field in teaching, I had a lot more structured environment in my classroom, and I might limit time at centers to a certain amount of time, and maybe you would even set a timer and you would rotate children. But children's learning doesn't start and stop when the bell rings and when the clock says it does. Children's learning is continuous, and I think one of the worst things we can do to children is when they're really involved and actively engaged, their mind is engaged in activity, if we stop them dead and make them go to something else, we've really just lost a lot of opportunity for growth and development. The water table is really important for developing a lot of basic math and language concepts, I think, for young children. And one way that we can really use it well is to set it up with a lot of different size containers for pouring and filling, and allow the children to have lots of opportunities. At first they'll just explore those, and then you try to give them the language to use. This is a larger container, this is a smaller container. How many of these would it take to fill up this large container? And you get a lot of vocabulary building from that experience. You can also work on the social interaction in the water table and really any area in your classroom, sharing the water. A lot of times the children get upset because he's taking my water. Well, then you say, can you work together to fill this area up? And they always want to do that too.
Does he squirt over here?
Well, that's a good guess. Now he needs some more water, doesn't he? You think he'll drink all the water? Your role as a teacher with the water table or any of the fluid materials, for instance, Play-Doh, the gravel, rice, beans, is to try to ask some leading questions to get children to expand their knowledge, and also to interact with them and give them a positive experience with materials.
Hi Shane, how are you? You would like to play on the computer? Let's see if we can look at your picture. Is there anything else you'd like to say about your picture?
I think one of the easiest ways to describe to parents that real learning is occurring in an activity such as the water table or the sand table is to at some point sit down with them either in the classroom and point out some things that are happening with the child, or maybe at a parent night. It's fun to have a parent-child night where the children rotate through the centers and you explain some things. And one of the things that I often will remind them is all the different math concepts the child is developing. They're understanding things about volume, about properties of materials, about sizes, larger, smaller, fuller, empty, all the vocabulary that occurs there. And sometimes it's nice even in your centers just to post a list of the kinds of learning that occur there, if you have room on your walls and in your classroom to do that. And when parents come into your classroom, they can read that and look over it.
Do you like the water on your hand? Oh, you do? How does it feel?
Cold.
It is cold, isn't it?
I think as a teacher of young children, it's really important to give up the idea that you have to be in control at all times. If you give some of that control to the children, you'll find it will become much more powerful for them. The learning will occur so much more. They will get much more meaning out of what they're doing. If you can just stand back and give them a little bit of control, let them make some choices, let them use some playful learning in their experiences in school, I think that you'll find that the type of learning that occurs will be so much more meaningful. I think in working with other teachers, the way that you can really sell the idea of play is to just let them experience it for a while, either by observing your classroom or by trying some activities in their classroom. And if they compare the kind of learning that occurs in playful learning, in a play situation, versus a teacher-directed, more teacher-controlled environment where you view yourself as teacher as the giver of all knowledge, I think that almost every teacher, once they've tried it the other way, will always go with the play. I really think they will, even though sometimes it takes a little bit more work to set it up and to guide it, and it takes some experience to facilitate and really make play into a constructive event. I think that when children learn, they seem to learn more, they seem to learn more meaningfully, more powerfully when it's through play.
In this video, we have seen how children use play to make sense of their world. Children take what they learn during play and apply it to their lives. We have observed how play allows children to develop social skills, growing from solitary players to cooperation with others. We have also seen how dramatic and manipulative play can reveal skills and characteristics to the observant instructor, providing a means for assessing the child's development. Play is a powerful learning tool for the caregiver as well as the child.